question be directed first at Kate. What is one thing that most students do not know about GPSA?
You know, I'm not sure. I'd like to say that you know, the GPSA has been accessible, that certainly I've tried to everything in my power to make the grants process accessible. For example, I have held workshops across this campus. I've held them in the ethnic centers, I've held them at the medical school, I've held them at the law school twice, you know, to make sure that students have access to reclaim those student fees that they've paid in the form of grants. But what do people not know about the GPSA? I think that what gets lost is exactly how powerful GPSA can be as an advocate for students. I think that through my experience sitting on this cost containment committee that made a recommendation to the Board of Regents today, I have seen the way that as a graduate student representative, my voice is listened to, because I have been speaking on behalf of graduate and professional students. And you know, the people in power know that the academic mission, our academic mission at UNM, can't be achieved without graduate and professional students. We teach and support 40% of the classes here at UNM. We do the research. Research and instruction is our academic mission. So I think that the average student doesn't know that if they walk into the GPSA office, they are connecting with people who can connect them with resources. They can advocate for them and their issues. I know that there's a huge problem with sort of the instruction happening at the Communication and Journalism Department. I know that the biology building, the top floors are not finished because the university sees right to spend their money on different capital projects and not finishing our biology building. They see it right that they should instead spend money on finishing a baseball stadium. You know, when students connect with the GPSA, they are sort of having access to the conversations that matter, the conversations that determine how much funding they have access to and what kind of decisions get made on this campus. And so I think one of the things that I'd like to do as GPSA president is advertise that more and make sure that GPSA is accessible through videos, through the website, through communication on our listserv, and also through increased programming. I think that often we don't have enough opportunities as graduate and professional students to just be social with one another. I mean, you know, it can be as simple as getting to know one another, and suddenly you are connected with other resources, because I think the people of this university are resources as well. So I think that is something that people don't know about the GPSA.
Patricia?
It's hard to select just one thing, so based on the feedback that I've gotten in visiting with students throughout the university, GPSA does not have to act as a singular body. GPSA can act with ASUNM. They can act jointly with all of the different GSAs. It doesn't have to act singularly. And so I think that's been one of the biggest observations, is that we can go to the different schools and the different departments, and we can look at what it is that those schools and departments and the students' needs are, and what their messages are, and what they would like to see. And together we can co-sponsor, and we can co-act, and we can ensure that we use the strength that GPSA does have, because GPSA as a governing body does have strength, but that doesn't mean that we have to act independently of the departments. And I think one of the things that we have not done very effectively is resonate that message, that those independent GSAs can come to the body and ask for sponsorship. I think another major point is that as a grant writer, I'm already conditioned to look for funds, and I'm already conditioned to look for ways in which I can increase resources and leverage the current monies. We don't have to stay boxed into the budget that we have. We can go after additional funds, and we can access different departments and schools, their resources, and we can supplement what we have. If we want to increase grants, we can do that. We can supplement our budget and we can increase those grants. This is why this experience is very important, because I'm already conditioned to do that. I look on a daily basis, I'm constantly searching for additional resources of funds to be able to supplement what it is that I do in my daily life, which is 20 million things. And so it's part of my practice, and I think that communicating that and empowering ourselves with that information is very important, because access to that capital, access to those assets that are available, we can be supplementing research. We can join with the private sector in a number of ways, and we can increase that pool. I don't believe that that's our sole responsibility. I think the burden of keeping costs down and tuition rates down lies within the institution of the university. However, if we want to increase accessibility, if we want to increase opportunity, then it behooves us as GPSA to be able to go to our constituents and say, this is a pool of money that we can all access. Thank
you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard for me to say what people do and do not know about the organization, but I will say when I entered this race, it was concerning looking back over the history in the UNM Lobo that only around 300 to 400 graduate students will vote in this election, and that's less than 10% of the entire population. And I was in Santa Fe this past session, and I was working as the principal analyst for the speaker, and one of the bills that we were tracking was a bill that would fundamentally change the graduation requirements at the state colleges of education. And it would fundamentally change the curricula of how those colleges actually taught the science of reading, how teachers were to teach reading. So this is very important to a graduate student at the university, and any university who's looking to become a teacher, because it now changes the rule of the game. And when I was in that committee hearing, and there were 3 of them, the bill died, but there were 3 committee hearings, I didn't see any representation from the colleges of education, from the student level, or from the graduate student associations of any university. And I think that's something that's going to be very different if I earn your vote. At the end of the day, I think this question begs a question of leadership. And my style of leadership really is to make an organization that is responsive to the needs of its clients. And that's just good business. At the end of the day, we have to be that voice who's on the front line, who has their thumb, on whatever you want to call it, that we're at those meetings and we're actually being as effective and as outgoing of a voice as possible. And at the end of the day also, I think that another important feature of what I'm bringing to the table really is this notion of being a salesperson for the graduate student community at New Mexico. I help run a business that employs 25 New Mexicans, and I have 2 small businesses myself, and I think it's important for this organization to start taking the lead in marketing its graduate student capital to the state of New Mexico. We lose too many of our classmates, and many of us may leave this state ourselves because we just can't connect with the business opportunities here in the state. And I think that that's an area where if we want to start asking ourselves, how do we make this organization matter to people? We make it matter to people by taking steps that really impact them and the considerations that impact the bottom line, which is, how is this organization helping me get a job? And I think that that's one area I want to take this organization in the future. Thank you.
Joseph.
Jacob brought up a good point, the idea that between 5 and 10% of the student body of graduate and professional students at the university vote in this election. And with that fact in mind, I would probably say that the biggest thing that people don't know about GPSA is probably what GPSA even stands for. And I don't mean stands for as a mission, I mean the acronym. That might not be far from the truth, and I think that kind of is a direct sign of what type of problem GPSA faces. We do talk about all of these problems that face the university that GPSA can address, but like I've been saying consistently, I think we need to address the situation within GPSA before we can make it a strong voice that has a table at the university to advocate for students' interests. Part of this, I think, like I've been saying, is the council, and I think that this is a big thing with word of mouth. I think that GPSA, we keep talking about being inclusive and this idea, and as much as the president wants to be inclusive, there's no possible way that the president can be as inclusive without working with the body of students that are representing the entire campus through all these departments with the GPSA Council. And I think part of that is letting the council have its voice. And I think that that hasn't happened in the past, and I think it's imperative to happen in the future for GPSA to be taken seriously within our university. Part of this also gets to a bigger picture that I think is facing GPSA, and that is acting as a united voice. And I keep talking about the relations within the organization. I think that's imperative, but I think what that will build on is a united voice within the university community. I think GPSA needs to stop fighting with ASU&M. All you ever see in the Lobo, and this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people don't understand what GPSA is about, is because every time you see something about GPSA, it is negative publicity, and I think that that needs to stop. And I think that these ideas of fighting before you look at commonalities between groups within the university is something that we need to change within the organization. So I think working with ASU&M, working with the staff council, the faculty senate, and the administration of this university is imperative for GPSA to be taken seriously, and it's imperative for GPSA's agendas to be able to be pushed forward, because I don't think that these groups are willing to work with GPSA if that doesn't happen. And I think that we would probably all testify that a unified voice is much stronger than one individual advocate for student rights, and that's where I'm very strong with expressing my opinion that GPSA must work and strive to go beyond somebody's personal agenda. We have to do this for the entire student body, and that happens with the council. It builds on to the other connections with the students, with the undergraduate students, with non-traditional students, and then it extends beyond the other organizations involved in the university, the faculty senate, and the staff council, and including the administration.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttals?
I just wanted to speak and actually agree with Joseph about the idea of working together with constituency groups. One of the things that we accomplished this year was a joint resolution between ASU&M, GPSA, the Faculty Senate, and the Staff Council to sort of put before the administration what are our financial priorities. If there must be a tuition increase, then we want the money to be spent this way. And in particular, you know, what are our priorities? Are our priorities towards the academic mission or not? So I just wanted to speak to that point that it's absolutely critical that where we have common ground, we should work together towards our objectives.
Any other rebuttals?